Millionaire goes to meeting disguised as a beggar, and his reaction left her speechless. Jennifer Morrison hadn't slept for 3 nights. The discovery that her best friend had tried to steal important documents from her company still left her heartbroken, questioning whether she would ever find true love or if everyone around her was only interested in her fortune. That's when she decided to conduct a definitive test with Michael Anderson, the man she planned to marry in 2 months. She would disguise herself as a beggar at the entrance of the commercial building where he worked as an executive, observing how he would react to someone in need without knowing it was her. On Monday morning, Jennifer woke up before dawn. Her fingers trembled as she put on old clothes she had bought at a thrift store in downtown New York City. The torn hood covered her carefully treated blonde hair, and she rubbed some dirt on her hands to complete the disguise. By 7:30 in the morning, she was strategically positioned on the sidewalk in front of the mirrored building on 5th Avenue where Michael worked. She knew his routine well. He always arrived promptly at 8 o'clock, greeted the doorman, and went straight up to the 23rd floor. The first executives began arriving shortly after. Well-dressed men and women passed by her as if she were invisible. Some deliberately looked away, others didn't even notice her presence. Each reaction confirmed her fears about the coldness of wealthy people. Then she saw Michael getting out of his luxury car. Jennifer's heart raced when she realized he was walking directly toward her. She lowered her head even further, allowing the hood to completely cover her face. "Good morning, ma'am," said Michael, stopping in front of her. "Are you all right?" Jennifer could barely respond. Her voice came out hoarse and low. "Good morning, sir. I'm a little hungry." Michael didn't hesitate. He took his wallet out of his pocket and pulled out some bills, but before handing them over, he asked, "Would you prefer money, or can I buy you coffee and a snack?" "A snack would be very nice," murmured Jennifer, impressed by his kindness. "I'll get it right now. Can you wait here?" Michael went into the bakery on the ground floor of the building and returned 5 minutes later with a bag containing a sandwich, hot coffee, and a piece of fruit. "Here you go, ma'am. And if you need anything else, I pass by here every day at 8 o'clock. Jennifer slightly raised her head, careful not to let him see her face completely. "Thank you, sir. God bless you." "The name is Michael. And what's your name, if you don't mind telling me?" Jennifer thought quickly. "Dorothy, Mr. Michael." "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Dorothy. Have a good day." As she watched Michael enter the building, Jennifer felt a mix of relief and guilt. The test had begun, but she hadn't expected his kindness to be so genuine and natural. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. On Tuesday, Jennifer returned to the same spot. This time, Michael brought not only food but also a blanket. "Mrs. Dorothy, last night was very cold. I brought this for you to keep warm." "You are very kind," said Jennifer, genuinely touched. "Why are you doing this for me?" Michael sat on the edge of the sidewalk beside her, completely ignoring his expensive suit. "My mother always taught me that everyone deserves dignity. She went through hard times when I was a child, and there were people who helped us. Now that I can, I try to give back." Jennifer felt her chest tighten. Michael had never told her this story before. During their 8 months of dating, she had always seen him as a successful executive, but had never known this deeper side of his personality. "Your mother must be very proud of you." She's no longer with us," said Michael, lowering his voice. "But I believe that wherever she is, she'd be happy to know I haven't forgotten the lessons she taught me." For a moment, Jennifer almost confessed everything. Seeing Michael sharing intimate memories with a complete stranger made her question whether she really knew the man she planned to marry. On the 3rd day, their conversation deepened even further. Michael arrived early and spent nearly 20 minutes talking with her before going into work. "Mrs. Dorothy, I don't mean to be intrusive, but do you have family?" Jennifer hesitated. She decided to mix truth with fiction. "I have a daughter, but she's ashamed of me. We haven't spoken in years." "That must hurt deeply." "It does," admitted Jennifer, thinking of her own distant relationship with her mother. "Sometimes I wonder if I did something wrong as a mother." Michael looked at her with genuine compassion. "I'm sure you did the best you could at the time. Sometimes people need time to understand that." These words struck Jennifer profoundly. She had cut ties with her mother 5 years earlier, after an argument about the company. Now, hearing Michael's simple wisdom, she began to question whether she had been too harsh. During the first week, the disguise worked perfectly. Jennifer observed Michael interacting not only with her, but with other homeless people who frequented the area. He knew many by name, knew their stories, offered practical help beyond money. One day, she witnessed a scene that deeply moved her. A clearly intoxicated man approached Michael asking for money. Instead of simply giving him a handout or ignoring him, Michael talked with him for nearly half an hour, offering information about recovery centers and promising to accompany him personally if he decided to seek help. "You're different from the others," said Jennifer when the man walked away. "How so, Mrs. Dorothy?" "Most people give money to quickly get rid of the problem. You genuinely care." Michael sighed deeply. "You know, Mrs. Dorothy, I work with wealthy people all day. Many of them are good people, but sometimes I think wealth creates a barrier between them and the rest of the world. As if they live in a bubble." Jennifer swallowed hard. These words described exactly how she had lived in recent years. "You're wealthy too," she observed cautiously. "I have a comfortable life, that's true. But I try not to let that make me forget where I came from." The second week brought new challenges. Rachel Thompson, Michael's secretary for 5 years, began noticing her boss was spending too much time talking with the same homeless woman every day. "Michael, don't you think it's dangerous to keep talking with that woman?" she asked one day, when he returned from another conversation with Dorothy. "Why would it be dangerous, Rachel?" "I don't know. Maybe she's plotting something. Those people sometimes do anything for money." Michael looked at her sternly. "Rachel, I'm surprised at you. Mrs. Dorothy is just someone going through hard times." "If you say so." Rachel didn't seem convinced. Rachel's suspicion planted a seed of worry in Jennifer's mind. She began noticing the secretary watching her from the office window whenever Michael came down to talk with her. During the third week, Michael surprised Jennifer with an unexpected proposal. "Mrs. Dorothy, I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal, Mr. Michael?" "I know some people who could help you find a job. It's nothing grand, but it could be a fresh start." Jennifer felt tears burning her eyes. Michael's generosity was real and profound, but it also intensified her guilt over the lie she was perpetuating. "You would do that for me?" "Of course. Everyone deserves a second chance." That night, Jennifer could barely eat. Michael's proposal forced her to confront the reality that she was manipulating a genuinely good man. For the first time, she seriously considered ending the test. But the next day, something happened that changed everything. A group of 3 executives from Michael's company passed her at the building entrance. She recognized 2 of them from social events she had attended with Michael. "How disgusting," one said loudly enough for her to hear. "How does the building management allow these people here?" "Someone should call security," agreed another. "It's a disgrace. I'm going to speak with my lawyer about this," added the third. Jennifer felt a mix of humiliation and anger, but also a visceral understanding of what people in her situation faced daily. 15 minutes later, Michael arrived and immediately noticed she was upset. "Mrs. Dorothy, did something happen?" She told him about the executive's comments. Michael became visibly irritated. "This is unacceptable. Do you know who they were?" "No, Mr. Michael. I don't want to cause any trouble." "You're not causing trouble. They are the ones who are wrong." Michael entered the building with determination. Through the glass windows, Jennifer saw him confronting the 3 men in the lobby. The argument grew heated, with Michael gesturing energetically. One of the men pointed in her direction, clearly defending their actions. When Michael came out of the building, his face was red with anger. "Mrs. Dorothy, I want you to know I spoke with them. This won't happen again." "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. Everyone deserves respect, regardless of their situation." Michael's courage in defending her, especially against co-workers, touched Jennifer deeply. She realized she was facing a man who not only talked about values, but lived them in practice. The 4th week brought an unexpected complication. Rachel, still suspicious, decided to investigate the mysterious beggar on her own. She hired David Patterson, a private detective who had worked for the company before. "I want you to find out everything about this woman," said Rachel, showing a photo she had secretly taken of Dorothy. "What specifically is bothering you about her?" "Something isn't right. My boss is spending too much time and money on her. I have a responsibility to protect him." David took the case, unaware he was about to uncover one of the biggest secrets in the New York City business world. Meanwhile, Jennifer continued her daily conversations with Michael. The intimacy that had developed between them as Dorothy and Michael was different from anything they had shared as a couple. Without the social pressures and expectations of their social circle, they talked about dreams, fears, and hopes more authentically. "You know, Mrs. Dorothy, sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life," Michael confessed one day. "How so?" "My job, my home, my friends, everything is so planned, so structured. Sometimes I miss spontaneity." "And what would you do if you could change?" Michael thought for a moment. "I guess I would travel, not to fancy places, but to meet real people, hear true stories, maybe help build houses for families in need or teach children to read." Jennifer was shocked. In 8 months of dating, Michael had never shared these dreams with her. She began to wonder if the luxurious environment they lived in inhibited him from expressing his true desires. "Why don't you do that?" "Commitment, responsibilities," Michael sighed, "and maybe fear. It's easier to stay in the comfort zone." "Fear of what?" "Of finding out I'm not as brave as I'd like to be." This conversation left Jennifer thoughtful. She began to realize that in her attempt to test Michael's character, she had uncovered layers of his personality that remained hidden in their formal relationship. In the 5th week, David, the detective, began piecing together the puzzle. His initial investigation revealed obvious inconsistencies in Dorothy's story. Her hands were too well kept for someone living on the streets. Her teeth were perfect, and he noticed she always disappeared at the same time every afternoon. David decided to follow her. To his surprise, he saw Dorothy enter a private parking lot, remove her disguise, and get into a new luxury car. Intrigued, he wrote down the license plate. The plate search led David directly to Jennifer Morrison, one of the wealthiest businesswomen in New York City. He could hardly believe the discovery. Why would a millionaire be disguising herself as a homeless person? While David deepened his investigation, Jennifer faced growing internal dilemmas. Her conversations with Michael as Dorothy had become the most meaningful part of her days. She longed for the mornings when she could shed her responsibilities and simply be human with someone who cared. One day, Michael brought a special surprise. "Mrs. Dorothy, I want you to meet someone." Beside him stood an older man, dressed in simple but clean clothes. "This is Mr. George. He runs a community center nearby. I told him about you." George extended his hand to Jennifer with a warm smile. "Michael told me you're looking for an opportunity. We have some part-time openings helping in the community kitchen. It doesn't pay much, but it could be a start." Jennifer was speechless. Michael hadn't just thought about helping her. He had taken concrete steps to make it happen. "I don't know what to say," she murmured. "You don't need to decide now," said George. "You can think about it and give me an answer when you feel ready." After George walked away, Michael sat beside Jennifer on the sidewalk. "I hope you're not offended. I just thought it could be an opportunity." "No, Mr. Michael, I'm very moved. No one has ever done something like this for me." "Everyone deserves a chance to start over, Mrs. Dorothy." Jennifer fought back tears. Michael's kindness was overwhelming, but it also made her deception more painful. She was playing with the feelings of a man who genuinely cared about her. That night, Jennifer made a decision. The next morning, she would confess everything to Michael. The test had lasted long enough and she could no longer bear the guilt. But fate had other plans. David completed his investigation and delivered a full report to Rachel. The document contained photos, financial records, and a detailed analysis proving that Dorothy was actually Jennifer Morrison. Rachel read the report 3 times before she could fully process the information. Her mind immediately began working on the possible angles of the situation. The next morning, as Jennifer prepared to confess everything to Michael, Rachel intercepted her in the building's parking lot. "Well, well, well, if it isn't the famous Dorothy," said Rachel, emerging from the shadows between the cars. Jennifer froze. She was still dressed in her homeless clothes, but Rachel clearly knew the truth. "I don't know what you're talking about." Jennifer tried, but her voice trembled. Rachel laughed cruelly. "Spare me the act, Jennifer Morrison. I know exactly who you are and what you're doing with my boss." Jennifer's blood ran cold. "How did you find out?" "I hired a detective. I have photos, documents, everything. The question now is, what are we going to do with this information?" Jennifer immediately realized she was being blackmailed. "What do you want?" Rachel smiled maliciously. "I want a promotion. I want to be the regional manager of your company with a salary of $500,000 a year." "You're crazy, and am I? Or are you willing to let Michael find out in the worst possible way that his millionaire fiancé was playing with him like he was a lab rat?" Jennifer felt the world spinning around her. Rachel was right. If Michael found out through a third party, it would be devastating for him. "I need time to think." "You have 24 hours. Tomorrow at 8 in the morning, I want a formal job offer, or Michael will find out everything." Rachel walked away, leaving Jennifer trembling between the cars in the parking lot. Her legs could barely support her. In a matter of minutes, her life had become a nightmare. She spent the rest of the day at home, unable to eat or think clearly. Rachel's blackmail had destroyed her plans to confess the truth at her own pace. Now she was being forced to make an impossible decision: give in to the blackmail or lose Michael forever. The next morning, Jennifer woke up with a desperate resolve. She would give Rachel what she wanted, but she would also confess everything to Michael immediately after, hoping that her honesty could minimize the damage. But fate once again conspired against her. When she arrived at the building to meet Michael, she saw him talking animatedly on his cell phone outside. He seemed happy and relaxed, genuinely smiling at something the person on the other end of the line had said. Jennifer approached quietly, planning to wait for him to finish the call before asking to speak in private. It was then that she heard fragments of the conversation that changed everything. "Yes, Rachel, I understand your concern. No, you're right, I need to be more careful. Thank you for looking out for me." Rachel was on the other end of the line. Jennifer realized that the secretary had decided not to wait for the promised 24 hours. Michael continued. "Are you sure about this? A millionaire disguising herself as a beggar? That sounds like something from a movie. Do you have proof?" Jennifer's heart stopped. Rachel was telling him everything at that very moment. "Send the photos by message. I need to see this." "What do you mean she was testing my character? What kind of person does that?" Jennifer slowly stepped back, her legs weak. Michael was discovering the truth in the worst possible way, through a third party who had turned his vulnerability into a spectacle. "I can't believe it." For weeks. Michael's voice was filled with hurt and indignation. How could she play with me like that? Jennifer hid behind a car, fighting the urge to run away. She needed to hear everything, even if every word was a stab in her heart. "Yes, Rachel, I think it's best we cancel the wedding. How can I trust someone capable of such manipulation?" Michael continued. "No, I don't want to talk to her now. I need time to process this." The call ended, and Michael stood still for several minutes, staring at the phone as if it held all the answers in the universe. His expression was one of deep betrayal and confusion. Jennifer came out from behind the car and walked slowly toward him, still dressed in her beggar clothes. "Michael," she said softly. He looked up and, for the first time in weeks, truly saw her. His eyes scanned her face, finally recognizing the features he had loved for 8 months. "So it's true," he said, his voice sounding strange and distant. "Michael, I can explain." "Explain?" He laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "How do you explain weeks of lies? How do you explain playing with someone's feelings as if it were an experiment? It wasn't like that. I was scared." "Scared of what, Jennifer? Scared that I wouldn't pass your test? Scared to discover I'm just another person interested in your money?" Michael's words were precise and painful. My best friend's betrayal made me question everything. So you decided to turn me into a lab rat? Michael shook his head in disbelief. During all those conversations when I opened my heart to Mrs. Dorothy, you were analyzing me like a specimen. No, Michael, it wasn't like that. Those conversations were real. Real? His voice rose. How can they be real when they were based on a fundamental lie? Jennifer tried to approach, but Michael took a step back. Please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain, Jennifer. You've shown me exactly who you are. Someone capable of manipulating other people to satisfy your own insecurities. Michael, I love you. Love? He laughed bitterly. You have a very strange way of showing love, playing with the person you claim to love as if they were a doll. Michael started to walk away, but Jennifer followed him. Please, don't go. We can talk about this. Talk? After weeks of lies, now you want to talk? He stopped and turned to her. Jennifer, you broke something inside me that I don't know if can be fixed. I know I made a mistake. A mistake? Michael interrupted her. That wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate choice. Day after day, week after week, you chose to keep lying. His words were like blades, but Jennifer knew she deserved every one of them. You're right. I was selfish and cruel. But what I discovered during these weeks is also true. You're a good man, Michael, better than I ever imagined. And how can I trust your opinion of me when everything you said was a lie? Michael entered the building, leaving Jennifer alone on the sidewalk. For the first time in weeks, she was truly helpless. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. During the following days, Michael refused to answer Jennifer's calls. He changed his routine, arriving at work at different times to avoid running into her. When she tried to visit him at home, the doorman said he had instructed not to let her up. Rachel, satisfied with the chaos she had caused, took advantage of the situation to get closer to Michael as a concerned friend. She offered a shoulder to cry on and a listening ear, always reminding him of how he had been betrayed by Jennifer. I knew there was something wrong with that beggar, said Rachel during a lunch she had insisted he accept. A woman has intuition for these things. Michael pushed his food around the plate without really eating. How could I have been so blind, Rachel? For weeks I looked directly at her face and didn't recognize the woman I planned to marry. She deceived you on purpose. It wasn't your fault. But the conversations... I told Mrs. Dorothy things I had never told Jennifer. I shared dreams, fears. Michael shook his head. How could she just sit there listening to my soul open up, knowing it was all a fraud? Rachel gently touched his hand on the table. You're a good man, Michael. She took advantage of that. Meanwhile, Jennifer was going through the worst days of her life. The guilt was overwhelming, but worse was the pain of having lost Michael. She began to understand the depth of the damage she had caused, not just by the initial lie, but by the continuation of the deception. One day she decided to look for George, the man from the community center that Michael had introduced to Dorothy. Maybe in some way she could honor the commitment that Michael had made in her name. Mr. George, she said, finding him organizing donations at the community center. Yes? He looked at her without recognizing her out of disguise. Was Mrs. Dorothy, the woman for whom Michael arranged a work opportunity. George studied her carefully. You look different. Jennifer took a deep breath. I have a long story to tell, and I think you deserve to know the truth. During the next hour, Jennifer told the whole story to George, from her friend's betrayal to the disguise and the discovery of the blackmail. George listened in silence, his eyes expressing a mix of surprise, disappointment, and, surprisingly, understanding. So you're rich, he said finally. Yes. And you hurt a good man because you were afraid. Yes. George sighed deeply. Child, we all do things we regret when we're afraid. The question is what we do afterward. I don't know what to do, Mr. George. Michael doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Maybe because you're trying to explain yourself when you should be trying to become a better person. George's words hit Jennifer like a bolt of clarity. What do you mean? Michael doesn't need your explanations, child. He needs to see that you've learned something from this, that you've truly changed. How can I show that if he doesn't even give me a chance? Who said you need to show it to him? Show it to yourself first. This conversation planted a seed in Jennifer's mind. In the following days, she began visiting the community center regularly, not as Dorothy, but as herself. She started helping in the kitchen, serving meals to people in need. The work was hard and humbling for someone used to luxury, but it was also transformative. For the first time in years, Jennifer was doing something genuinely selfless, with no hidden agenda or ulterior motive. 1 week after starting the volunteer work, Jennifer had a surprise. Michael arrived at the community center for his regular weekly visit. She didn't know he had been volunteering there for over a year. When he saw her in the kitchen serving soup to a family of 5, his eyes widened in shock. "What are you doing here?" he asked after the family moved away. "Learning," replied Jennifer simply. "Learning what?" "To be a better person." Michael studied her carefully, noticing how she interacted naturally with the people coming to eat. There was no condescension or pity in her behavior, just genuine kindness. "George said you've been coming here every week." "Yes." "Why?" Jennifer stopped stirring the soup and looked at him directly. "Because during those weeks as Mrs. Dorothy, I discovered who I really wanted to be, and I found out how far I was from that person." Michael didn't respond immediately. He watched Jennifer interact with a few more people before speaking again. "This doesn't change what you did to me, I know, and I'm not here trying to change that. I'm here trying to change myself." They worked in the same space for the rest of the afternoon, but didn't talk anymore. There was a palpable tension between them, but also something more, a renewed awareness of each other. In the following weeks, both Jennifer and Michael continued their volunteer work at the center. They interacted when necessary, but maintained a respectful distance. Jennifer noticed that Michael watched her sometimes, as if trying to understand her motivations. One day, a family arrived at the community center that deeply touched Jennifer's heart. It was a woman with 3 young children who had lost their home due to financial problems. The family's situation was desperate and the center's resources were limited. "Mr. George," said Jennifer after the family left, "this family needs more help than we can offer here." "I know, my dear, but our resources are limited. What if I made an anonymous donation? Something that could help them start over?" Mr. George looked at her carefully. "That would be very generous, but are you sure your motivations are pure?" Jennifer thought honestly about the question. "I don't know if my motivations are always pure, Mr. George, but I know this family needs help and I have the resources to help them. If that also makes me feel better about myself, maybe that's not a bad thing." Mr. George smiled for the first time since he had learned Jennifer's true identity. "Now you're speaking like someone who truly understands what it means to help others." Jennifer's anonymous donation allowed the family to get a small apartment and for the mother to take a vocational course. When the woman returned to the center to give thanks, she had no idea who had funded her new chance at life. Michael, who had witnessed the whole situation, was intrigued by Jennifer's anonymous generosity. For the first time since discovering the truth, he began to question if there might be more to the story than his initial hurt had allowed him to see. A month after the initial confrontation, Rachel began to worry. Her strategy of getting close to Michael as an understanding friend wasn't working as planned. He remained polite but distant, and she could feel he was processing the situation in ways she hadn't anticipated. Worse still, Rachel had discovered that Jennifer was attending the same community center where Michael volunteered. This wasn't part of her plans. "Michael," she said one day at the office, "I heard your ex is going to the center where you volunteer." "And? Don't you think that's strange? After all she did, suddenly she turns into a saint." Michael looked at her with an expression Rachel couldn't decipher. "Rachel, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Why do you care so much about what Jennifer does or doesn't do?" The question caught Rachel off guard. I'm just concerned about you, as your friend." "My friend?" Michael leaned back in his chair. "Rachel, we've worked together for 5 years, but we're not friends. We're professional colleagues. Rachel felt the ground shifting under her feet. I thought that, after all I did for you. What you did was tell me about Jennifer. I appreciate the information, but that doesn't create a special closeness between us. Rachel realized she had miscalculated the situation. Her attempt to get closer to Michael was being seen exactly for what it was: opportunism. Michael, I just wanted to protect you. Protect me from what, Rachel? The truth? You told me about Jennifer over the phone, without context, without giving me a chance to process the information properly. Was it protection or drama? Rachel had no answer for that. I think it's best we keep our relationship strictly professional from now on, said Michael, ending the conversation. This clear rejection from Michael made Rachel realize she had lost her gamble. She not only hadn't managed to get closer to him, but had also revealed her true motivations. Meanwhile, Jennifer's transformation continued. Her work at the community center had brought her into contact with realities she had never faced before. She met women who worked 3 jobs to support their families, men who had lost everything due to illness, children who dreamed of basic things like a hot meal. These experiences made her completely rethink her priorities. She began to restructure her company, implementing social responsibility programs and creating job opportunities for people in vulnerable situations. One day, 3 months after the confrontation with Michael, Jennifer received an unexpected visit at her company. It was her mother, Mrs. Margaret, a 70-year-old woman she hadn't seen in 5 years. Mom. Jennifer stood up behind her desk, shocked. Why did you come here? I read in the papers about your new social programs, said Margaret, looking around the luxurious office. I wanted to understand what was happening. I don't understand. Margaret sat in the chair opposite Jennifer's desk. Daughter, over the last 5 years you've turned into a person I didn't recognize. Obsessed with money, distrustful of everyone, arrogant. I was waiting for you to become the generous girl I raised again, but she seemed to have disappeared forever. Jennifer slowly sat down. And now? Now I see in the papers that you're donating millions to social programs, creating jobs for people in need, working personally at community centers. I want to understand what changed. Jennifer told her mother the whole story, from her friend's betrayal to the disguise, the discovery by Michael, and her subsequent transformation. Margaret listened silently, her expression going through various emotions. So you lost the man you loved because of fear, Margaret summarized when Jennifer finished. Yes, and now you're trying to become a better person. I'm trying to become the person he saw in me when he thought I was Mrs. Dorothy. Margaret smiled for the first time in the conversation. Maybe you lost Michael, daughter, but it seems you found yourself. The reconciliation with her mother was another important step in Jennifer's journey of self-discovery. Margaret began visiting her regularly, and Jennifer realized how foolish she had been to cut ties with the only person who had always loved her unconditionally. 4 months after the truth was revealed, an incident at the community center forced Jennifer and Michael to work together for the first time since the confrontation. A family was about to have their electricity cut off due to medical debts, and the center had no resources to help. We need to do something, Michael said to George. They have a sick child who needs equipment that runs on electricity. Our emergency fund is empty, George replied sadly. Jennifer, who had overheard the conversation, approached. I can help, she said simply. Michael looked at her in surprise. Jennifer, this isn't about us, Michael. It's about this family. Together, they developed a plan. Jennifer would cover the family's medical debts, while Michael would use his contacts at the company to get a job for the father. It was the first time in months that they had spoken cooperatively about anything. Thank you, said the sick child's mother when she learned her debts had been paid off. You two saved my family. The woman's genuine gratitude touched both Jennifer and Michael deeply. For a moment, the hurt between them seemed less important than the good they had managed to do together. Can we talk? Michael asked after the family left. Jennifer nodded, and they walked to an empty table in the corner of the community center. I've been watching you these past few weeks, Michael said. Your actions here seem genuine. They are genuine. But that doesn't change what you did to me. I know, said Jennifer, and I'm not asking for forgiveness because I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that those conversations we had as Mrs. Dorothy, for me, they were the most real we ever had. Michael studied her carefully. How can I tell the difference between the real Jennifer and the Jennifer who's trying to manipulate me again? You can't, Jennifer admitted. Only time can prove that. And if I don't want to give it time, if I just want to move on. Jennifer felt her heart break, but she maintained her composure. Then I would respect your decision and be grateful for the time we had together. The maturity of Jennifer's response surprised Michael. He had expected arguments, pleas, or attempts at emotional manipulation. Instead, she was offering genuine acceptance of the consequences. I need more time to think, he finally said. I understand. They returned to their separate activities at the community center, but something had shifted. A small crack had opened in the barrier Michael had built around his heart. 5 months after the revelation, Rachel made a desperate decision. Her position at the company had become untenable since Michael had made it clear he wanted to maintain only a professional relationship. She decided to try one last move. Rachel went to Jennifer's company. I need to talk to you, Rachel said when she was admitted to Jennifer's office. About what? About Michael. Jennifer felt a stab of anger but remained calm. What about Michael? He's suffering. He's trying to convince himself he can forgive you, but the hurt is too deep. And why are you telling me this? Rachel hesitated. She had planned to make up a story about Michael being interested in someone else, but looking at Jennifer, she realized that perhaps the truth would be more effective. Because I made a mistake. When I discovered your secret, I should have let you tell him in your own way. Instead, I turned it into drama. Jennifer was surprised by Rachel's honesty. Why are you telling me this now? Because Michael is a good man, and you two love each other. My interference made everything more complicated than it needed to be. And what do you want from me? Nothing. I just wanted you to know that part of his hurt isn't just about what you did, but about how he found out. This conversation gave Jennifer a new perspective on the situation. She began to understand that Michael wasn't just processing her betrayal, but also the humiliation of having discovered it through a third party who had turned his suffering into gossip. Determined to address this specific issue, Jennifer decided to write a letter to Michael, not to ask for forgiveness, but to explain her original motivations and take full responsibility for how things had unfolded. The letter took several days to write. Jennifer rewrote it dozens of times, trying to find the right words to express her feelings without seeming manipulative. In the final version, she wrote, Michael, I'm not writing this letter expecting forgiveness, but because I believe you deserve to fully understand my motivations. My best friend's betrayal made me question whether anyone could love me for who I am, not for what I have. My fear led me to test you in a cruel and unfair way. During those weeks as Mrs. Dorothy, I discovered a side of you I had never seen, and I also discovered aspects of myself that I had lost. The conversations we had were the most authentic of my life, and that's why they are also the most precious. I know I hurt you deeply, and I know you deserve better. If you decide that you can't forgive me, I will understand and respect your decision. I just want you to know that you made me want to be a better person, and I will be eternally grateful for that. With love and sincere regret, Jennifer. She gave the letter to Mr. George, asking him to give it to Michael when he found it appropriate. 2 weeks later, Michael approached Jennifer at the community center. I received your letter, he said, and I think we need to have a serious talk. They walked to a park near the center, finding a bench under a leafy tree. Jennifer, during these months I've been thinking a lot about what happened between us. Jennifer remained silent, giving him space to speak. The betrayal was painful, but what hurt me most was discovering there were layers of you I never knew. During our dating, you never shared your insecurities, your fears, your doubts. But as Mrs. Dorothy, I discovered a vulnerability in you that made our conversations deeper than anything we had as a couple. I was trying to be perfect for you, said Jennifer. I thought you wanted a strong, successful woman. I wanted you, Jennifer, not an edited version of you." They stayed silent for a few minutes, watching children play in the nearby playground. "What do you mean by that?" asked Jennifer finally. "I'm saying that maybe we both contributed to what happened. You lied, but I also failed to create a space where you felt safe to be vulnerable. Michael, you're not to blame for what I did. I'm not to blame for your choice to disguise yourself, but I am responsible for the kind of relationship we built before that." This perspective was new to Jennifer. She had taken full responsibility for the relationship's failure, but Michael was suggesting there were deeper issues that both of them had ignored. "So what does this mean for us?" she asked. "It means that if we're going to have a chance to rebuild anything, we have to start from scratch. Not as a couple trying to fix a broken relationship, but as two people who met and fell in love for the wrong reasons." "How would we start from scratch?" Michael smiled for the first time in months. "How about with total honesty? No games, no tests, no trying to impress each other. Just two people trying to really get to know each other." Michael's proposal was both hopeful and terrifying for Jennifer. It meant abandoning all the defenses and artifices she had used to protect herself for years. What if you don't like the real person you discover? What if I like her more than the version you thought I wanted? This conversation marked the beginning of a new phase for them. Instead of trying to resume the old relationship, they decided to get to know each other as if they were two completely new people. They started meeting weekly for long conversations about their lives, their dreams, their fears and their failures. Jennifer told about her lonely childhood as an only child of workaholic parents, about how she had built emotional barriers to protect herself, about her constant struggle between wanting to be loved and fearing being used. Michael shared his own insecurities about coming from a poor family, about the pressure he felt to succeed financially, about how he sometimes felt intimidated by Jennifer's world. "You know," said Jennifer during one of these conversations, "as Mrs. Dorothy, I felt more myself than at any other time in recent years. Why? Because I had nothing to lose. I didn't have to protect my image, my company, my social position. I could just be human." "So why can't you be human as Jennifer?" This simple question hit the heart of the matter. Jennifer realized she had used her wealth and social position as armor, protecting herself from rejection, but also isolating herself from genuine connections. 6 months after the original revelation, Jennifer made a radical decision. She completely restructured her company, turning it into a social enterprise that reinvested most of its profits in community programs. She also moved from her mansion to a smaller apartment, closer to the community center where she worked. "Are you sure about this?" asked Michael when she told him about the changes. "It's a very drastic decision." "It's the right decision for me. I found that my wealth was preventing me from living authentically. I'm not getting rid of everything, but I'm finding a better balance." Jennifer Morrison's transformation impressed Michael Anderson, but it also worried him. "You're not doing this for me, are you?" "No, I'm doing it for myself. But I admit you inspired me to question what kind of life I really want to live." Their weekly conversations evolved into more frequent meetings, then into joint projects at the community center. They discovered they worked well together, that they shared core values about social justice, and that their different life experiences complemented each other. 1 year after the original revelation, they were working together on a project to build a new wing at the community center when Michael asked a question that caught Jennifer off guard. "Do you miss her?" "Miss who?" "Mrs. Dorothy." Jennifer stopped organizing the documents she was reviewing. "Sometimes. I miss the freedom she had, the simplicity." "I miss her too," Michael admitted. "What do you mean?" "I miss the conversations we had. There was an intimacy in them that was special." Jennifer felt a pang of jealousy toward herself. Was it easier to talk to her than to me? It wasn't easier, it was different with Mrs. Dorothy. I didn't have to think about the social or professional implications of what I said. I could just be. And now? Can you be yourself with me now? Michael looked at her carefully. More than before. But there are still times when I feel like we're navigating more complicated waters. This conversation led Jennifer to an important realization. She had created Mrs. Dorothy as an escape from her complicated life, but in the process had discovered aspects of herself that she wanted to integrate into her real identity. "Michael, can I ask you a strange question?" "Of course." "If you could have a conversation with Mrs. Dorothy again, what would you say to her?" Michael thought for a moment. "I would say thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For showing me it was possible to have real conversations about things that matter, for making me realize I was living a very superficial life, for teaching me that kindness and vulnerability aren't signs of weakness." Michael's words touched Jennifer deeply. "And what would you say to Jennifer?" "I would say she doesn't need to hide behind anything, that the person she is when she removes all defenses is someone worthy of love." This conversation marked a turning point in their rebuilt relationship. For the first time since the revelation, they kissed. It was different from any kiss they had shared before, deeper, more authentic, based on real knowledge of each other. However, there were still obstacles to overcome. Michael's family, who had learned about the story through gossip, was skeptical of Jennifer. They saw her as a wealthy woman who had played with their son's feelings. Michael's mother, Mrs. Patricia, was particularly direct when she met Jennifer. "So you're the girl who pretended to be homeless to test my son?" "Yes, ma'am." "I am." "And why should I trust you now?" Jennifer didn't try to justify herself or minimize her actions. "You shouldn't trust me, Mrs. Patricia. Trust is something earned with time and consistent actions. I can only promise that I'll try every day to be worthy of the trust Michael is giving me." Jennifer's brutal honesty surprised Mrs. Patricia, who had expected apologies or superficial charm. "At least you're direct," the older woman said. "That's a start." During the following months, Jennifer worked patiently to gain the acceptance of Michael's family. She didn't try to buy them with expensive gifts or impress them with her wealth. Instead, she showed up for Sunday dinners, helped with household chores, and listened to stories about Michael's childhood. Slowly, Raphael's family began to see beyond the woman who had made a terrible mistake and recognize the person who was genuinely working to become better. At the same time, Beatrice also faced challenges within her own family. Her mother, while supportive of her personal transformation, was concerned about the radical changes in her daughter's lifestyle. "Honey, are you sure you're making the right choices for the right reasons?" Margaret asked during one of their weekly lunches. "What do you mean?" "I mean, aren't you punishing yourself too much for what you did to Raphael?" The question made Beatrice reflect deeply. "I don't think I'm punishing myself, Mum. I think I'm finally living according to my values." "But you had values before too. You've always been a good person." "I had values, but I didn't live by them. I let fear and insecurity govern my decisions." Margaret studied her daughter's face carefully. "You seem happier now, despite all the pain you've been through." "I am happier. More complicated too, but happier." 18 months after the original revelation, Beatrice and Raphael were closer than they had ever been, but they still hadn't officially labeled their relationship. They spent most of their free time together, worked on joint projects and supported each other emotionally, but avoided formal definitions. "Are we dating?" Beatrice asked one day as they walked in the park after a day of volunteer work. "Do you want us to be dating?" Raphael replied with another question. "I do, but I'm also scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared that if we put official expectations on what we have, we might ruin something that's working well." Raphael stopped walking and turned to her. "Beatrice, we went through something that would destroy most relationships. If we manage to survive that and become closer, I think we can handle the boyfriend-girlfriend label." They decided to officially resume the relationship, but with different conditions. There would be complete transparency about feelings, fears, and insecurities. There would be no games or tests, and both committed to working on their personal issues individually and together. One of the most challenging aspects of rebuilding their relationship was dealing with the past. Beatrice still felt intense guilt over the pain she had caused, and Raphael still struggled with moments of distrust. "Sometimes I catch myself analyzing your actions, looking for hidden motives," Raphael admitted during a couple's therapy session they had decided to attend. "And sometimes I catch myself walking on eggshells, trying not to give you reasons to doubt me," Beatrice replied. The therapist, Dr. Rebecca Williams, helped them understand that these feelings were normal and would diminish over time if addressed openly. "Trust doesn't rebuild overnight," she explained. "It's a process that requires patience from both parties." The therapy sessions were crucial in helping them navigate through difficult moments. They learned communication techniques, strategies for dealing with emotional triggers, and ways to build intimacy based on healthy vulnerability. 2 years after the revelation, Beatrice and Raphael faced their first major test as a rebuilt couple. Raphael's company was undergoing restructuring, and he received a job offer from a competitor of Beatrice's company. "It's an amazing opportunity," he said when he told her about the proposal, "but I know it could create conflicts of interest with your company." "Raphael, you can't turn down a professional opportunity because of me. But what if it creates a complicated situation? Then we'll deal with it. We're adults who've learned to communicate." Raphael's decision to accept the job offer was a defining moment for both of them. It showed that they had learned to navigate complex situations without distrust or manipulation. When a situation arose where the two companies were competing for the same contract, Jennifer and Michael established clear protocols to avoid conflicts of interest. They didn't discuss work at home and took extra care to ensure that their professional decisions were based on merit, not personal relationship. "You know my company is going to win this contract, right?" joked Michael during dinner one night. "We'll see," replied Jennifer with a smile. "But I hope whoever truly deserves it wins." Michael's company ended up winning the contract, and Jennifer congratulated him genuinely. This experience proved to both of them that they had developed the maturity and trust needed to handle complex challenges. 3 years after the original revelation, Jennifer and Michael had become a stronger and more authentic couple than they had ever been before. Their relationship was based on real knowledge of each other, acceptance of flaws, and commitment to continuous growth. They had also become leaders in their community. The community center where they volunteered had expanded significantly, largely due to their joint efforts. They had developed innovative programs that connected business people with social projects, creating sustainable partnerships that benefited everyone involved. "Remember when you asked me if I missed Mrs. Dorothy?" asked Jennifer one day, while organizing supplies for an animal adoption fair they were promoting. "I do. I realized I don't miss her anymore because I managed to integrate the best parts of her into the person I am now." Michael smiled. "And I realized that the conversations we had with Mrs. Dorothy were special, not because she was a different person, but because you were allowing me to see layers of you that you had kept hidden." Their ability to speak openly about the past was a sign of how far they had come in their healing process. One day, 4 years after the revelation, Michael surprised Jennifer with a proposal, not of marriage, but of a joint project. "What if we created our own non-profit organization?" he suggested. "We could combine your business expertise with my knowledge of social assistance." The idea was to create an organization that would provide not only financial assistance for families in need, but also empowerment programs, business mentoring, and psychological support. "It would be a huge commitment," said Jennifer. "Are you sure you want to do this with me?" "I'm sure I want to build something meaningful with the person I love." The creation of the non-profit organization was a project that lasted 2 years. They faced bureaucratic, financial, and logistical challenges, but also discovered that they worked together better than either of them had imagined. "We make a good team," observed Michael after a particularly productive meeting with potential donors. "We always have," replied Jennifer. "We just needed to learn to trust each other." The organization, called New Horizons, quickly became a model for other similar initiatives. They developed a holistic approach to helping families escape poverty, not only providing immediate assistance, but also creating sustainable pathways to economic independence. 5 years after the original revelation, Jennifer and Michael were celebrating the 2nd anniversary of New Horizons when he made a different proposal. "Jennifer Morrison," he said, kneeling on one knee in the middle of the party, "would you marry me?" The hall fell silent. Jennifer looked at the familiar faces around her, people they had helped, families that had become friends, colleagues who had become chosen family. "Michael Anderson," she replied. "I would say yes to marrying you every day for the rest of my life." The marriage proposal was a moment of pure joy, but also of recognition of how far they had come. They weren't getting married to fix something broken, but to celebrate something they had built together. "You know," said Mr. George during the engagement speech, "I met these two at very different times in their lives. I saw them when they were lost, when they were hurt, and now I see them when they are whole." The wedding preparations were deliberately simple. They wanted a ceremony that reflected their current values: authenticity, community, and service to others. "No lavish party," Jennifer told the event planner. "We want something that honors our journey and the people who were part of it." The wedding took place at the community center, where they had met again as transformed people. The decorations were made by families they had helped over the years. The dinner was prepared by the organization's volunteers. During the ceremony, both wrote their own vows. "Michael," said Jennifer, "you taught me that true love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about choosing to grow together with someone. Thank you for giving me the chance to become the person I was meant to be." "Jennifer," replied Michael, "you showed me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to be vulnerable despite fear. I promise to keep choosing you every day, even on the hard days." The ceremony was moving for everyone present. Many of the people there knew the couple's full story and understood the depth of forgiveness and growth that the moment represented. Mrs. Margaret, now 75 years old, cried throughout the ceremony. "I never thought I'd see my daughter so genuinely happy," she whispered to Mrs. Patricia, who had become a close friend over the years. "They deserve this happiness," replied Mrs. Patricia. "They worked hard to get here." The honeymoon was spent working on a housing project in a rural community in the countryside of New York City. Instead of relaxing at a resort, they chose to help build homes for families who had lost their houses in a flood. "This is the strangest honeymoon I've ever heard of," joked one of the other volunteers. "It's perfect for us," replied Jennifer, looking at Michael as he taught a child how to paint a wall. 6 months after the wedding, Jennifer discovered she was pregnant. The news brought immense joy, but also anxieties about how to balance parenting with work at the organization. "I think we'll have to learn to be parents the same way we learned to be a couple," said Michael, "with complete honesty and lots of talking." "And lots of patience with each other," added Jennifer. The pregnancy brought reflections about legacy and values. Both wanted to raise a child who understood the importance of contributing to others' well-being, but without imposing unrealistic expectations. "I want our son or daughter to grow up knowing that everyone deserves dignity and respect," said Jennifer during a medical checkup. "And I want them to know that it's possible to make serious mistakes and still become a better person," added Michael. The baby, a girl they named Hope, was born on a sunny spring morning. When Jennifer held her for the first time, she thought about the journey that had led her to that moment. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "Your mommy has many stories to tell about learning to be a better person." Michael watched his wife and daughter with deep emotion. The woman who had disguised herself as a beggar 5 years earlier out of fear and insecurity had become the most authentic and generous person he knew. "What are you thinking about?" asked Jennifer, noticing his contemplative expression. "I'm thinking about how lucky we are, not just for having hope, but for finding our way back to each other." "Do you think we would find our way if everything happened again?" "I don't know, but I know I'm grateful for the journey that brought us here." In the months following Hope's birth, Jennifer and Michael had to navigate the challenges of being new parents while maintaining their commitment to New Horizons. They developed a system where they took turns caring for the baby and handling the organization's responsibilities. "It's like we're constantly juggling," observed Jennifer, during one of the few nights they managed to have dinner together without interruptions. "But it's a juggling act we chose," replied Michael, "and we're learning to do it together." When Hope turned 1, New Horizons had become one of the most respected non-profit organizations in New York City. They had helped more than 500 families find housing and economic stability, and their programs were being replicated in other cities. "Sometimes I wonder what our life would be like if Mrs. Dorothy had never existed," said Michael during Hope's birthday party held at the community center. "We'd probably be living a much shallower life," replied Jennifer. Maybe still together, but not really knowing each other. Do you regret anything? Jennifer thought carefully about the question. I regret hurting you. I regret not having the courage to be vulnerable from the start, but I don't regret the journey that brought us here. The party was full of people whose lives had been touched by Jennifer and Michael's work. There were families who now had their own homes, young people who had gotten jobs through the training programs, children being raised in more stable communities. You've built something beautiful, said George, now 68 and officially retired but still volunteering at the center. And I'm not just talking about the organization. Thank you, Mr. George. None of this would be possible without your guidance. You did the work. I just pointed in the right direction sometimes. That night, after all the guests had left and Hope was sleeping, Jennifer and Michael sat on the backyard swing of their home. Do you think our story would have a happy ending if we hadn't gone through all that pain? Asked Jennifer. I don't know if it would have such a meaningful ending, replied Michael. The pain forced us to question everything, to truly know ourselves, to consciously decide what kind of people we wanted to be. And what kind of people have we become? Michael looked at her tenderly. We've become people who know that true love is a daily choice. People who understand that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. People who believe it's possible to use our wounds to help heal others. That sounds like a happy ending to me. To me, too. They remained silent for a moment, watching the stars and reflecting on the journey that had taken them from that terrible morning 5 years earlier to this moment of deep peace. Jennifer, yes? Thank you for having the courage to disguise yourself as Mrs. Dorothy. Why? Because without her, we might never have discovered who we really are when we stopped trying to impress each other. Jennifer smiled, feeling a sense of completeness she had searched for her entire life. And thank you for being kind to a beggar one random morning. It changed the course of everything. Changed for the better. Definitely for the better. 7 years after that first morning, when Jennifer sat on the sidewalk dressed as Mrs. Dorothy, she and Michael were celebrating the 5th anniversary of New Horizons. The organization had grown exponentially, now operating in 5 American states and serving as a model for similar initiatives in North America. Hope, now 3 years old, was running between the tables at the event, being spoiled by the volunteers who had watched her grow up. She was a happy and empathetic child, already showing early signs of interest in helping others. "Mommy, why is that lady sad?" asked Hope, pointing to a woman who had recently arrived at the community center. "Sometimes people get sad when they're going through hard times, my dear. How about we go talk to her?" Jennifer watched her daughter approach the woman with the ease of someone who had grown up in an environment where helping others was normal. She was exactly the kind of person she and Michael hoped to raise. During the event, they received an award of recognition from the New York City Mayor's office for the social impact of their work. When they went on stage to accept the award, Jennifer couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. 8 years ago, she said in her acceptance speech, I was a lost woman, trying to figure out if the people around me loved me for who I was or for what I had. Today I have the answer. I am loved for who I choose to be every day. The audience applauded enthusiastically, many of them knowing the personal story behind Jennifer's words. My husband once said that everyone deserves a second chance, she continued. I discovered that sometimes we ourselves are the people we most need to forgive. After the event, a young woman approached Jennifer. Sorry to bother you, she said timidly. My name is Emily Carter. I'm a journalist and I'm writing an article about organizations that make a real difference in the community. It's a pleasure to meet you, Emily. Actually, I know your story. The whole story, including the part about disguising yourself as a beggar. Jennifer felt a familiar pang of anxiety. And what's your opinion about it? Emily smiled. My opinion is that you did something terrible that turned into something beautiful, and I think there's power in telling that story to other people who have also made mistakes they regret. What do you have in mind? A book. Your story told with complete honesty. Not to promote yourself, but to show people that it's possible to rebuild trust, transform relationships, and create something meaningful from the ashes of our worst moments. The idea of writing a book about her experience was both terrifying and appealing to Jennifer. I'd have to talk to Michael first, Of course, and I want to be clear, I'm not interested in sensationalism. I'm interested in authenticity. That evening, Jennifer discussed the proposal with Michael. What do you think? I think our story could help other people who are struggling to rebuild trust in their relationships, but it would mean exposing our private life to the world. Part of our private life is already public through our work. The question is, are we comfortable using our experience to potentially help others? They decided to accept Emily's proposal, but with strict conditions about how the story would be told. The book should emphasize personal responsibility, growth, and the possibility of redemption, not dramatization or victimization. The process of writing the book was therapeutic and challenging. Jennifer had to revisit emotions and memories she had processed, but now through a different lens. She also had to confront aspects of her personality that were still evolving. It's strange to see our life written on paper, observed Michael after reading the first few chapters. It's like watching a movie about yourself, agreed Jennifer. You recognize the events, but the perspective is different. The book, titled Finding Truth Through Lies, A Journey of Personal Transformation, was released 2 years later. To everyone's surprise, it became a bestseller, resonating with thousands of people who had made mistakes in their relationships and were seeking paths to redemption. I received a letter from a woman who said our book helped her find the courage to confess an affair to her husband, Jennifer told Michael after a book signing. And how did her story end? They're in couples therapy and working on rebuilding. She said our journey gave her hope that it was possible. The success of the book led to invitations for lectures and workshops on relationships, forgiveness, and personal transformation. Jennifer and Michael discovered they had a talent for helping couples navigate trust crises. I never imagined our worst moments would become our greatest contribution to helping others, said Michael during a trip to a conference in Los Angeles. It's ironic, isn't it? Replied Jennifer. The thing that almost destroyed us became the foundation for helping other couples save themselves. They developed a workshop program called Rebuilding Bridges, a guide for couples in crisis, which became popular in several American cities. 10 years after Jennifer first sat on the sidewalk as Mrs. Dorothy, she was back at the same spot. This time she wasn't in disguise. She was there with Hope, now 6 years old, and their second daughter, Emma, 2 years old, visiting the community center where it all began. "Mommy, why are you crying?" asked Hope, noticing tears in her mother's eyes. "They're happy tears, my dear. I'm remembering how I met your father." "Right here in this place?" "Yes, right here. I was sitting exactly on this bench, pretending to be someone else because I was afraid to show who I really was. And Daddy liked you anyway. Daddy taught me that being yourself is the only real way to be loved." George, now 75 with completely white hair, approached them. "Mrs. Jennifer, what a joy to see you here with your girls." "Hello, Mr. George." I wanted to show them where it all started. "This bench has become something of a historical landmark around here," the elderly man joked. "Sometimes I see couples sitting here and talking about their problems." "Really? Really? Your story has spread through the community. It's become a symbol that it's possible to start over when you have the courage to be honest." The idea that their story had become a symbol of hope for others touched Jennifer deeply. That evening, during a family dinner, she told Michael about the conversation with George. "Do you think we really made a difference?" "Jennifer, look around." Michael gestured to their simple but warm home, where the girls' drawings covered the refrigerator and books on community development shared space with children's books. "Look at New Horizons, at the families we've helped, at the couples we've guided. Of course we made a difference. Sometimes I still can't believe we made it here. We made it here because we chose to work for it every day." Hope, who was playing with blocks in the living room, came over to the table. "Mommy, Daddy, can you tell me the story of how you met again?" "Again," joked Michael. "We've told that story 100 times. I like the story. It's about people who hurt each other but learn to love each other for real." The simplicity with which Hope summarized their story made Jennifer smile. "That's exactly right, my dear. It's about learning that true love means choosing to grow together. And it means that sometimes we have to be brave to tell the truth even when it's hard. added Michael. Like when I broke your favorite vase and was afraid to tell you. Exactly like that. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Jennifer and Michael sat in the backyard, as they had done so many times over the years. Michael? Yes? If you could go back in time and change anything about our story, what would you change? Michael thought carefully about the question. Honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. Not even the pain I caused, not even that. Because the pain forced us to grow in ways we might never have grown otherwise. It taught us that real love isn't about avoiding conflicts, but about how to handle them. And what would you say to the Jennifer from 10 years ago if you could meet her on that bench? I'd say, have the courage to be vulnerable from the start. The right person will love you for your imperfections, not in spite of them. And what would you say to the Michael from 10 years ago? I'd say, pay attention to the beggar woman on the sidewalk. She will change your life in ways you never imagined. They both laughed, remembering the irony of how their lives had intertwined. Jennifer? Yes? Thank you for having the courage to eventually take off the mask. Thank you for giving me reasons to want to take it off. They fell silent for a moment, watching the stars and reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had taken them from that first morning to this moment of deep satisfaction. I think we found our happy ending, Jennifer said finally. I don't think it's an ending, replied Michael. I think it's just the beginning of a new chapter. What do you mean? I mean, we still have a lot of growing ahead of us, many people to help, many adventures to live together. And if we had to go through all that pain to get here, I can't wait to see where our happiness will take us. Wherever it is, we'll go together. Together, agreed Jennifer, taking Michael's hand and feeling a deep gratitude for the journey that had begun with lies and fear, but had evolved into authenticity and true love. That night, as they fell asleep, both knew they had found something rare and precious. A love built on the solid foundations of real knowledge, conscious forgiveness and shared growth. The beggar woman had long since disappeared, but the wisdom she had brought into their lives remained. They had learned that sometimes we need to get completely lost to truly find ourselves, that sometimes we need to break to be rebuilt stronger, and that sometimes our worst mistakes can be transformed into our greatest gifts. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this moving story of transformation and forgiveness. Do you believe Jennifer made the right decisions throughout her journey? Did the true love between her and Michael manage to overcome the initial betrayal? Leave your sincere comments about this story of overcoming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories like this one.